last one that broke it.
All right, good evening everyone and welcome to tonight's council meeting. Council would like to start off by acknowledging the Wadawurrung people, the traditional owners of this land, waterways and skies on which we meet under today. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and we acknowledge all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are part of the Greater Geelong community today. Now this meeting is being broadcast on the internet and the recording of the meeting will be published on Council's website. Well, good evening everybody. My name is Trent Sullivan and as the Mayor of the City of Greater Geelong Council, I will be chairing the April Council meeting tonight. Thank you all for attending, everyone in person and everybody online. It's been an incredibly busy month. This time of year is always dominated by budgets. Council released its proposed budget 4 weeks ago, and since then, we've seen the federal government's budget come out, and of course, the state government's budget, which is revealed today. One of the things that separates local government is that our annual budget process is open, transparent, and can be shaped by public feedback. Genuine community consultation is central to the creation and finalisation of our financial plans. As part of this, councillors were out in their wards in their local areas. Thank you for notifying me. As part of this, councillors were out in their wards, out in their local areas over the weekend just gone, meeting with residents, hearing their ideas and discussing issues that were impacting their households, organisations, businesses and budgets across all levels of government. Public feedback on the proposed budget and revenue and rating plan is about to close. So if you haven't already lodged a formal submission and you would like to do so, please do so by 5 p.m. tomorrow. All submissions will be heard by a review panel that will then meet to consider this feedback. All submitters have an opportunity to add to their written submissions by presenting to the panel in person. All feedback will then be carefully considered before the budget comes back before Council for endorsement in the June meeting. Of course, those in the gallery also have the opportunity to present to the Council tonight in public question and submission time. So thank you everybody who's coming along and being engaged. Now councillors, I'll be asking for strict adherence for speaking time limits tonight. In terms of apologies and leaves of absence, Councillor Grisbeck is a late apology due to illness and sends her apologies. We also have a leave of absence lodged by Councillor Peter Murray from the 25th of May to the 3rd of July 2023 inclusive. Can I please have a mover? Councillor Harwood, seconded Councillor Mason. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? None. That is carried. Declarations of conflict of interest. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest in relation to tonight's agenda? Any councillors become aware of any or they do arise, please let them be known throughout the meeting. Now, may I please have a mover and a seconder to confirm the minutes of council meeting held on the 26th of April 2023. A mover, Councillor Asher, seconder, Councillor Mason. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Right. The next agenda item is public question and submission time. It is specifically available for questions and submissions rather than as a forum for discussion. In accordance with our policy, 45 minutes is set aside for question time, providing for each person to address the council for 3 minutes per question or submission, with no more than 2 questions asked or submissions made per person. A maximum time limit of 3 minutes applies to each question asked or submission made. Questions and submissions provided in writing prior to the meeting will be considered first. After this, if time permits, members of the gallery will be given the opportunity to ask a question or make a submission. However, if it is in relation to an agenda item, councillors won't be able to provide you with an answer as you'll be shortly hearing us debate it itself. I notice that there are questions relating to items on tonight's agenda which are directed at councillors, being 2.1, the 26th January Community Engagement Outcomes. As this item is being considered tonight, councillors will be unable to answer any questions during public question time. For those who have pre-submitted questions but are not present tonight, responses to your questions have been published on the council's website and will also be emailed to you directly. It's also important to note that each councillor has all the questions that have been sent in. Now, for tonight's council meeting, we received pre-submitted questions from 35 community members. Now, council has received a large number of questions that relate to the proposed 23-24 to 26-27 budget in regards to delivery of library services. Each submitter will receive an individual response, written response, and will also have their answers and questions published online. But for the purpose of tonight's meeting, I'll be reading out one collective response to address being the following statement. Appreciate there have been several questions regarding libraries and a strong show of support from the community in the chamber tonight. Library funding is part of the 23-24 proposed budget, which is still out for community consultation. If you haven't already, once again, I encourage you to put in a formal submission via the city's Have Your Say website before it closes tomorrow evening at 5 p.m. The Geelong Regional Library Corporation's draft budget is also available for community feedback, and the city encourages you to submit to that process, asking that we all work together. I will be making the following statement to answer all the questions that have been put to us this evening on this topic. The City of Greater Geelong does not support the closure of any libraries. The Council values the role libraries play in the community, and we are determined all libraries in the region will remain open. Following discussions between the City of Greater Geelong and the Geelong Regional Library Corporation, the City is pleased that they have a commitment not to close any libraries. This is a step in the positive direction. The City has advised that the Regional Corporation construction of the new Armstrong Creek Library will not be completed in time for the service to be open during the 23-24 financial year. This will be a reduction of expenses for the year ahead. We have also heard that you, the community, do not support the reduction of services that is currently being proposed in many forms. And we've discussed opportunities available to make sure that we do not have to reach this outcome. We hope that the City and the Corporation will reach a mutually beneficial outcome. The City provides 85% of all council contributions towards the Corporation's total budget, and our funding is intended to cover the operations of all libraries within the City of Greater Geelong, new and existing. Based on the current Greater Geelong population estimate of 276,116 residents, our proposed $12.244 million in cash contribution towards the Corporation for the next financial year equates to $44.34 per resident. This is well above the average spend of our immediate neighbours and of other large Victorian cities. For example, on recent benchmarking, Ballarat invests $27.57 per resident, Bendigo $25.48, and Wyndham $30.33. So our $44.34 is well above. In regards to looking at the model of library delivery, the Local Government Act 2020, which we now serve under, mandates that all library corporations decide on their future within 10 years, being by 2030, and the City will fulfil this requirement with opportunities for consultation and community engagement as required under the Local Government Act. I would also like to address the questions regarding Chilwell Library development. This project will remain as a priority on the City's list of on-hold projects, which is why the City has been in contact with the state governments requesting funds allocated to the Chilwell Library be held until the second quarter of 2023-24 financial year, when the City is able to investigate all opportunities to reinstate, rescope or stage this project with the available funding, which will be in that timeframe. The City will continue to work with the Chilwell Library Group, the community and our funding partners for this project. On behalf of the Council Group, I would like to thank everybody coming in here tonight on this topic for submitting questions to Council, making submissions and coming together as a community in Geelong West and Highton over the weekend. Now that submission, that I've just set out, that statement, is in relation to questions asked on the delivery of library services by Lynn Dowling, Alicia Dimonovsky by delivery of library services, William Ramirez on delivery of library services, Amy Jenkinson on behalf of the Friends of Barwon Heads Community Library in regards to delivery of library services, Hilary Hoevanaras for delivery of library services, Tim Simmons, delivery of library services, David Metcalf on delivery of library services, Philip Bade on behalf of the Hamlin Heads Association on revenue and rating plan and delivery of library services, Andrew DeMayo on delivery of library services, Angela Carr on delivery of library services, Tracy Stone on delivery of library services and vacant building, Anne McMahon on delivery of library services and councillor remuneration, John McCourt on 23, 24, 26, 27 budget and management of library services, Lindy Mills on delivery of library services, Joel Carnegie on on 23, 24, 26, 27 budget revenue sources, Paddy Seeler on delivery of library services, Jan Laidlaw, delivery of library services, Adam Palmer, delivery of library services, Gary Ornyuk on delivery of library services, Emma Regan on delivery of library services, Patricia Beardsley, delivery of library services. All right. Now moving on to the other submissions and questions on tonight's agenda. We also have questions asked by Charlotte Cortot, Tree Management, Helen Clark, proposed amendment to the Rippleside Planning Scheme for Stage 5, Balmoral Quay, Kelly Lavelle, Cardinia Pool Seasonal Closure, Lauren Wingert, Public Infrastructure Mount Dunedin, Tegan Mitchell, the Voice Referendum, Felicity Dales, Long-Term Smart Cities Plan, Howard Smith, Social Housing, Chrissy Freestone, 23, 24, 26, 27 Budget, Vicky Perrott, Climate Change Response Plan, Peter Reid, Geelong Regional Library Corporation, Steve O'Brien, Social Housing Accommodation for the Homeless, Caroline Gellert, Surveillance Devices Act 1999, Jean Nel de Coca, Proposed Budget and Tree Management New Organisational Structure, Colin Bridges, Rates, Barwin, Heads. Can I please have a show of hands from that second lot of names I've just read out who are in attendance this evening? Excellent. I'd like to invite Charlotte Cortot to ask a question. Is Charlotte in the question? Sorry, is Charlotte in the audience this evening? If not, we're next to Helen Clark. Is Helen Clark here this evening?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, but I'm not sure members of the gallery understand.
Can you turn on your microphone, sorry?
And get a question and answer tonight?
As I've stated, all questions submitted by the library will have direct answers sent to everybody who asks questions. The questions and the answers have also now been published online for full transparency. Thank you, Councillor Murray.
And so just still on that, so there's...
Sorry, are you raising a formal point of order?
Well, there's one particular...
So are you raising a formal point of order?
Well, a point of order, I just want
Okay.
to... It doesn't have to be a point of order, but someone's asked a question, and it's a two-part question, and one of that was in relation to the vacant building in Russell Street that's next to the library. Now, you haven't given a response to that.
All the responses, all the questions that have been asked, have been submitted to Council. As I said, been published online, full transparency, and the answers have been published there and also sent to the individuals.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, but it's not in relation to library services, this particular question.
The total question they submitted was part of it. So they've been taken on bulk. Thank you. Is Helen Clark here this evening, as I asked? If Helen Clark is not here, then I'll go to the next one as well. So we're not taking questions from the audience that are just shouted out. We're going through the list of people submitted. Is Kelly Lavelle here tonight?
Mr. Mayor,
Thank
a point
you.
of order, please, if I may. I just really want to reiterate the point that Councillor Murray has made. For instance, submitter of question 17 has in fact asked a second question that is not directly related to the library. So should they not be given an opportunity to ask that question on the basis that it is not related to the library questions?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Kelwell. When we go through the list of all the other pre-submitted questions and there is time for people to approach and ask a question, that'll be the time then. Thank you. Kelly, how are you? Excellent. When you start speaking, your time will be yours. Sorry, can we just make sure that her microphone is on, please? We just pull a little bit microphone closer to your mouth a little bit. Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you.
Thank you. City Greater Geelong's services and service performance indicators include strategic direction for residents to be part of a healthy, caring and inclusive community. This states healthy community is one where everyone has the opportunity to experience their best possible health and well-being. At least 5 times a week, but not tonight, I swim at the Cardinia Aquatic Centre. Undeniably, this experience contributes to my physical and mental health and well-being. I don't require the services of a regular GP. It's a long time since I've used Bowen Health or a therapist. It took the pandemic to keep Cardinia Aquatic Centre open all year round, for which I was extremely grateful, and I am devastated that you are considering closing it. You could be doing the opposite and promoting the pool to achieve your strategic direction indicated above and to get more people swimming. This pool is our region's only 50-metre outdoor pool. It is well loved and is in keeping with the sporting precinct that is Cardinia Park. Everyone I have spoken to at Cardinia Aquatic Centre, the staff, the users, the squads, are highly distressed at this proposal. Every time I swim there, the lanes are full of swimmers. My questions are, how can you, as a council, justify removing access to and closing the Cardinia pool when it contravenes your own goal of promoting active and healthy lifestyles at every stage of life? What is the cost to the health of the community by removing access to this facility? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Kelly. I'll direct that to our Director of Community Services Delivery. Please. Just make sure your microphone is on there, David. Give it another second. Give it a tap. Can you hear me now? It's still just turning itself on. We'll just give it a second. Right now.
Okay,
Yep.
Thank you. And I'll be answering on behalf of the Director. Thank you for your question, Kelly. The City does promote an active and healthy lifestyle by investment in swimming sports and leisure network, including 4 year-round aquatic centres. However, faced with rapidly rising costs, Council are having to make some difficult budget decisions across all our operations as we look to remain sustainable. During winter, the Cardinia pool attracts around 5,918 swimmers per month. Based on those numbers and the facility's current running costs, ratepayers are subsidising every swim by $22.50. This is not financially sustainable. Cardinia Aquatic Centre operated as a seasonal facility prior to COVID, when the Council allocated extra funding to open it during winter due to COVID-related capacity restrictions at our indoor pools. The operating hours funded via this year's proposed budget would therefore be returned to the facility to its standard operating hours pre-2021. If you have not already, we would welcome you to provide a submission on our proposed budget regarding the swimming facility, and this can be done via our Have Your Say page. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Yeah. Councillor Murray.
And Kelly, thanks for your question, and thanks for coming along on Saturday morning and expressing the same question. I think I told you there was a petition going around online. I hope you've maybe sought that out and signed that. I think it's up to about 1,800 or 1,900 signatures at the moment. So have a look for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Aiken. So, Deputy Mayor Aiken, we'll just make sure your microphone's on and close to your face, please. It's still not working, Deputy Mayor. You may have to insist that you turn your microphone on or let it get working.
It is turned on, but
Yeah, just give it a second so it can set itself up.
I swap mics, Councillor.
It should be working now. Please hold it close to your face.
I just wish to respond that Councillor Gwesbeck and I had our Northern Suburbs listening post on Sunday, and we actually received great representation from both the Lara Swing Club and those associated with Norlane as well too, about the impact of no aquatic facilities. So it certainly is something that Council's going to have a look at, either if not during the budget process, but immediately after it as well too, because in the Northern Suburbs we have the issue that when Lara used to close, you go to Norlane, and we've actually got the issue that Norlane's going to be closed for a 10-month period because of the construction of the new facility. So the budget is making impacts which are not matched with our construction program as well too. So I think I'm flagging a very good argument that the community is presenting. Yeah.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Aiken. Councillor Usher.
Sorry, I'll be lucky last on this one, I think. Thank you, Kelly, for your question, and to everybody who's raising that as an issue. I'm also hearing about this. Can I just say, as well as signing the petition, put in an individual submission rather than a group submission, so the more submissions we get about issues that are of importance to you, the better. Numbers do count. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, is Lauren Wingert in the audience this evening? Lauren Wingert? Tegan Mitchell. Tegan Mitchell, please come forward. How are you, Tegan?
Good, thank you.
Excellent.
So, while Ms Asher was Mayor in 2021, on the 26th of March of that year, Council had said that they would support the Uluru Statement of the Heart. To quote Mr Mason at the time, who was the Aboriginal Affairs portfolio, "We stand with our First Nations people. We've heard them and we will continue to work together and walk together towards treaty, reconciliation and a strong Aboriginal voice." So I ask you, Council, after this promise and the referendum that's coming this year, do you as a council actually support the voice?
Thank you, Tegan. I've got our Director of Customer, Community and Economy for response.
Can you hear me? Working? Thank you. Thanks for the question, Tegan. Great to see you here again tonight. You were here last month, which is great. City of Greater Geelong's council expressed its support for the Uluru Statement from the Heart via a letter to the Prime Minister in March 2021. In the lead up to the referendum this year, the city is supporting a number of events to assist the community with understanding. These include The Heart, a Shared Journey forum, which has been supported by the city's Killinjit Aboriginal Advisory Committee, an event in early July, The Elders Talking Country, The Heart, Elders Sharing Knowledge and Their Story, as well as establishing The Heart community kiosks, which will be established in key locations around the city over June, July and August to share information on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tegan. Is Felicity Dales in the audience this evening? Felicity, please. How are you, Felicity?
Great, thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, time will start when you start speaking. All yours.
Felicity Dales. My question is, in the Smart City Strategic Framework, the 7th principle listed is trust and transparency. Quote, "We will build trust and confidence in our smart city through clear, honest and open dialogue with our citizens." As per previous questions from residents at Balmoral Quay Rippleside in relation to ongoing development since 2016 and anticipated for a further 6 years from stages 3 till 5, they have presented their concerns with a substantial increased traffic volume and safety concerns that, however, haven't been addressed. Is this part of the long-term Smart Cities plan of higher density living?
Sorry, Felicity, I'll just interrupt you for a second. Councillor Contell has a conflict of interest with Balmoral Quay and has just left the room for this, so I just need that noted on the minutes.
Right.
Please, continue.
Is this part of the long-term Smart Cities plan of higher density living, with transport being encouraged by bike, scooter, public transport, walking, car sharing and reducing any capability of owning a car with no parking allowances? My first question.
First
so
question?
he's left.
Absolutely. We'll do them one at a time. I'll throw to our Director of Strategy, Governance and Corporate for response to that one.
Hello, yes. Thank you for your question, Felicity. The formal exhibition process for the Balmoral Quay Amendment will likely commence around July, August, and the community is encouraged to make submissions on this amendment during this time. The Smart City Strategic Framework is a municipal-wide framework planned for the Greater Geelong. The framework has a broad focus, including highlighting the benefits of supporting multiple modes of transport, but it does not provide specific direction on modal shift, nor does it encourage or discourage the provision of car parking.
My second question is, the response to the question on safety was, the City are currently undertaking a feasibility study and concept plan to revitalise the Bay Trail, which is an existing trail from North Shore to central Geelong. How does the answer align with safety in a congested residential area?
Again, Felicity. The aim of this Bay Trail revitalisation project is to improve the existing off-road transport route between North Shore to Geelong waterfront. Increasing safe transport options between these two destinations will help reduce on-road traffic congestion in nearby areas, including Balmoral Quay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Felicity. Is Howard Smith in the audience with us this evening? Howard. How are you, Howard?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, well, thank you. Well,
That's good.
Your time will start when you start speaking, please.
Thank you very much, and I think this one is going to be quite significant if I put in that context for all people. According to figures published by the Geelong Independent on the 18th of March 2022, there were 3,300 households in the Geelong area living in social housing. But about 10,000 households who were needing social housing. This need is expected to rise to 17,000 households by 2041. Given the housing and homelessness crisis in Geelong, what actions is the Council taking to ensure the targets set in the Council's own social housing plan, starting with 6,000 dwellings by 2031, and a further 6,000 by 2041 are met? And what happens to the further 5,000 households who are expected to need social housing by this time? That was question one.
We'll go one at a time then, Howard. Go for a response to question one, please.
Thank you, Howard, for raising your concerns regarding the housing and homeless issues facing the Geelong community. The City shares your concerns and is taking action that is both an immediate response and contributing to longer-term solutions. This is reflected through the City's endorsed social housing plan 2020 to 2041, and the goals are to increase the supply of social housing across the city area to 13,500 by 2041, advocate for increased state and federal investment in new social housing, increase supply of social housing by contributing city-owned land to new developments, amend the City's planning scheme to require the inclusion of social and affordable housing in new developments based on need, continue to revitalise our neighbourhood areas with high social housing concentration to increase livability and wellbeing.
Okay.
We're just going to know, sorry, I'll just pause there for a moment. Howard, Deputy American, you have a comment? Yes.
Mr Mayor, can I just...
Make sure you speak into the microphone, please.
Okay. Is that working now, sorry? Yeah.
Yes, it's better.
Mr Mayor, can I just respond as well too that Council did adopt its social housing policy and framework, and for the first time ever, Council's actually directly being involved in the provision of social housing in Geelong. It's never done that before. We are establishing a housing trust and that we are identifying land which is owned by the city and the community to actually be put into that trust. And for the first time ever, it actually means that council will have some direct intervention into social housing. Prior to these direct actions by the council, we've only made statements previously about social housing. So I really think it does show the commitment of the council to actually try to address the issue by actually being directly involved in the provision of social housing. We've also established a framework where we actually encourage our strategic and statutory planners to actually negotiate with developers to actually make a voluntary contribution towards social housing in their developments going forward. And we're already starting to see examples of that in terms of that policy framework with the North Geelong proposed sale yard site and the amendment that's been adopted. We have negotiated with one of the major landholders to actually ensure that a component of their development actually does have social and affordable housing. So there are some strong commitments from this particular council that have not been undertaken previously. It certainly won't address the thousands that the reports and the material that you're referring to, but I'm actually extremely proud that the council's taking direct action on the issue of trying to find affordable and social housing for people in Geelong.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Aiken. Howard, your second question, please.
Second question. Has it been put in the too hard basket, or is there a definite plan to address the current obstacles facing the planned social housing on council land in Belmont, Bellpost Hill and Corio?
Howard, you're the Acting Director for response.
Again, Howard. These are long-term housing outcomes and will be established across the life of the plan. To ensure ongoing implementation annual actions are reviewed and developed as part of the annual business planning process. You will be provided a copy of the Social Housing Plan 2020-2041 update, which identifies the achievements to December 2022. This update is also available on the city's website.
Thank you, Howard. All right, is Chrissy Freestone in the audience? Hi, Chrissy.
Very well, thank you.
Excellent. Your time will begin once you start speaking.
Great. Thank you for taking my question. Council's key fiscal objectives include strategic direction, sustainable growth and environment. The budget document states that 4-year priorities under this objective include create engaging places and spaces, deliver best practice environmentally sustainable design principles and vibrant neighbourhoods, support our community to build resilience for climate change, support greater Indigenous biodiversity. Clearly, the urban forest is a major asset and a critical part of achieving these objectives. The budget document provided on the City Council's website does not provide sufficient detail to determine whether the allocation of funds proposed in the budget effectively responds to and addresses these aspirational statements as outlined above. Consequently, I am unable to identify changes to and cuts from specific programs which support the objectives and the urban tree forest. My questions are regarding particular line items in the budget. The first question, what is included in the open space renewal budget item under strategic direction, healthy, caring and inclusive community?
Thank you. We've got the Director for response. Acting Director Greaves.
Mr Mayor, and thank you, Chrissy, for your question. The open space renewal budget has been allocated $3.052 million, and that is on page 72 of our document. And this is an ongoing renewal program for open space assets across the municipality. These funds will be used to renew assets such as lighting, fencing, sports fields and surfaces, playgrounds, skate parks and dog parks, as well as outdoor furniture and barbecues. A state government grant in 2021 enabled the detailed collection of open space asset information and modelling of the degradation of these assets over the next 10 years. Based on this modelling, the renewal budget has been increased to ensure delivery of the current level of service and ongoing financial sustainability.
And my second question is, what is included in the initiative shown on page 19, environmental and irrigation asset renewal, and how much has been budgeted for that?
Again, the environment and irrigation asset renewal on page 19 is, again, an ongoing renewal program for environmental and irrigation assets across the municipality. The amount budgeted in the coming financial year is $740,000, and that's on page 66. The environmental assets earmarked for renewal primarily include our marine and coastal assets, such as jetties, seawalls, coastal protection structures along the Bellarine Peninsula. Irrigation renewal ensures that irrigation infrastructure across our parks, gardens, sporting facilities, and we have about 170 sites with irrigation, remains serviceable, and we can continue to deliver the required level of service for those clubs.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chrissy. Joel Carnegie. How are you, Joel?
Hi. Thank you.
Apologies for the earlier confusion.
No worries, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Councillors. I'm deeply concerned about the looming threat to funding cuts that really hang over our arts and culture, our community life, recreation services, the G21, the UNESCO designation and our libraries. These proposed cuts do paint a distressing picture for the community, and I think you can see that and hear that over the last few days. And it depicts a council prepared to sacrifice the culture and well-being of a community already burdened by debt, grappling with the cost of living and still reeling from the ongoing effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, and a community that relies on these services and departments to thrive. Budgets are choices, and they reflect the priorities of those who make those decisions, and those choices have impacts. So in light of the overwhelming response from the community over the past few days, I think it's evident that the people of Geelong expect and deserve better. As a council entrusted with stewarding one of the fastest growing cities in Australia, I think it's fair to ask whether the proposed budget truly represents the best that can be done.
So I'm just going to interrupt you there for one moment, Joel. Ma'am, at the back, I apologise, there's no photography allowed in the chamber. Thank you. Please continue, Joel.
So my question is this: what alternative revenue sources did the City of Greater Geelong consider in their construction of their recent budget proposal? And did this include a diversity of asset sales, which provides future income from rateable properties, alongside the reversal of the proposition to bring commercial rates in line with residential rates?
Thank you for your question, Joel. Got a response here by Acting Director Ben Slagman.
Thank you. Thanks for the questions, Joel. The City's long-term financial plan considers a variety of aspects for alternative revenue. Diversity of assets are considered in line with the return on investment, provision of funding, existing and future services, and benefit to the community. As part of the revenue and rating plan endorsed by Council in 2021, the City is simplifying the rating system by reducing the variation between different rating types. This includes reducing the variation between commercial industrial rates and residential rates. This means we are progressively bringing the rate in the dollar for commercial industrial properties down to support local business and to ensure our region is an attractive place for business investment. Residential rates remain competitive in comparison to other councils across the state.
Thank you, Joel. Much appreciated. Vicky Perrott. How are you, Vicky?
I'm good, thank you, Mayor, and good evening to all the councillors. I have made a formal submission to the budget process, but there's one area that I'd particularly like to bring to your attention, and I'm not sure how many of you read the latest UN IPC climate report, but there was one statement that really jumped out. There is a rapidly closing window of opportunity to secure a livable and sustainable future for all. The choices we make in this decade will have impacts now and for thousands of years. That's pretty profound, isn't it? The City's Climate Change Response Plan has a municipal target of net zero community emissions by 2035, which the community was very pleased to see about. However, if we look at Ironbark's sustainability snapshot data, over the last 3 years, Greater Geelong's carbon emissions have not gone down at all. They've been around 3.45 to 3.67 million tonnes. We're not reducing our emissions anywhere near fast enough, and the city is not on track to fulfil its aspiration to become a zero emissions, climate-ready city and region. So my first question is, does the council stand by its commitment it made when approving the Climate Change Response Plan on the 23rd November 2021? Of accepting its leadership role and promising to work, and I quote, with the community to achieve net zero emissions and increase our region's resilience to climate change impact through coordinated and collective actions.
Thank you for the question, Vicky. Acting Director for Planning and Design for response.
Thanks for the question, Vicky. The Climate Change Response Plan confirms Council's commitment to working towards a municipal-wide net zero emissions target by 2035. Council recognises that it has an important role to play in leading and supporting other organisations and individuals to contribute to this municipal-wide emissions reduction target. Municipal emissions have dropped by 218,000 tonnes of CO2 from 2018-19 to 2020-21. And we expect emissions to further decline due to the Victorian Government target of 95% renewable energy supply to the electricity grid. Key areas that Council is focusing on include leading and collaborating, reducing our operational emissions, planning to manage climate-related risks, administering the planning scheme and new development, delivering community infrastructure, supporting community efforts. We've delivered a range of products and achievements in each of these areas today, including developing e-learning programs, providing community grants, hosting a net zero forum and switching our infrastructure to renewable energy. Please contact a Sustainable and Environment Planning team for further details on each of these projects and others. We're always interested in new ideas and initiatives to help progress towards a climate-ready, zero-emission city and region.
I didn't think we had a sustainability department anymore after the restructure, so I'll be pleased to see
all responsibilities are still remaining internal.
Right. The small reduction in emissions was largely to do to transport and people were working from home. So my next question is that really we want Geelong to be a leader and there are other municipalities doing heaps more. Newcastle, Wollongong, Merrimack, Darebin, of course, but also cities like Greater Bendigo. They have created a Greater Bendigo climate collaboration with a municipal goal of zero emissions by 2030. They're trying to seize the opportunities. It's a partnership that involves expertise across the sectors, and they're bringing their expertise, experience, resources and financial support from business, education and the community as well as the council. So will council establish a collaborative group composed of community, business, educational institutions and relative authorities to develop a practical roadmap and an evidence-based implementation plan to achieve its municipal target of net zero by 2035?
Thank you, Vicky. We're the Acting Director for response.
Again, the City has a range of initiatives to work with the community on delivering the outcomes from the Climate Change Response Plan, including the establishment of a new Community Climate Change Partnership funding model, the Sustainability Advisory Committee and community forums such as the recent Zero Emissions Forum.
You know how well that
Thank you,
forum
Vicky.
went, don't we?
Greatly appreciated. Steve O'Brien. Steve with us in the audience. Sorry, ma'am, just into the microphone. Are you representing Steve? Yeah, please.
Steve's unable to be present, so asked me if I could.
Yep, absolutely. If you just state your name, ma'am, then your time is
Diane
yours.
Cunningham.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you. I'd just like to say good evening to the council and everyone in attendance this evening. Thank you for allowing me to voice these questions on behalf of Steve O'Brien, and also thank you to Howard, who had the questions earlier on the same topic. I've got two questions, but first one, the number of homeless people in Geelong is growing week by week. They are living in sleeping bags and tents, usually supplied by charity groups. They are sleeping in the parks, by the river, in the streets or in their cars if they are blessed enough to own one. Some of our homeless have jobs and others have been victims of abuse, affected by mental health issues, drugs or alcohol, or made homeless by other life-changing circumstances. Our local Geelong Council is quick to build multi-purpose centres, swimming pools and spend money on the foreshores of the bay and cater for other minority groups who are not nearly as unfortunate or even deserving as our local homeless. They are desperate and will be severely affected by, yet again, another cold and wet winter. Numerous charity groups and volunteers are working tirelessly to address our homeless people's needs, but have found there is either no housing available or what is available is simply unaffordable. Why does the Geelong Council seem to be avoiding restricting the funding for accommodation for our homeless?
Thank you very much for reading that one out, Diane. I'll go to Acting Director of Community, the Director of Community Service. So, Joanne, please.
Thank you, Diane, for raising concerns for those experiencing homelessness in our community. The City shares your concerns and is taking action that is both an immediate response and contributing to longer-term solutions. On a day-to-day basis, the City works directly with the key services that are providing outreach support to people who are sleeping rough. As part of the longer-term response, the City is an active partner in the Geelong Zero project, a community-led initiative supported by NEMI National, the Australian Alliance to End Homelessness, Give Where You Live, and a number of local housing, community and support organisations. This is a collective impact partnership aiming to ensure that homelessness is rare, brief and non-recurring. This work is underpinned by the City's endorsed Social Housing Plan 2020 to 2041, which outlines our commitment to increase the supply of social housing across the City area to 13,500 by 2041, advocate for increased state and federal investment in new social housing, increase supply of social housing by contributing City-owned land to new developments, amend the City's planning scheme to require the inclusion of social and affordable housing in new developments based on need, and continue to revitalise our neighbourhood areas with high social housing concentration to increase livability and wellbeing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diane.
Okay, and the second question...
Diane, there was a second question that was submitted. We have contacted Steve directly on that one.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Caroline Gellert. Is Caroline here? There we are. Wait, Caroline.
Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Thank you, Mayor, Councillors, CEO and all present here in the forum. My question is regarding surveillance. Must put my glasses on. Surveillance Devices Act 1999. My first question, with regards to the Surveillance Devices Act 1999, in particular number 21 of 1999 Part 2, regulation of installation, use and maintenance of surveillance devices. Item 7 concerning the regulation of installation, use and maintenance of optical surveillance devices clearly states a person must not knowingly install, use or maintain an optical surveillance device to record visually or observe a private activity to which a person is not a party without the express or implied consent of each party to the activity. My question, does the Council intend to comply with this Act when expressed withdrawal of consent to this type of surveillance is received from members of the community within its jurisdiction?
Caroline, since the answer to your first question leads into the second one, I might ask that you ask the second one as well. Thank you
very much. My second question is, depending on the first, is how does the Council intend to guarantee both the rights to privacy as well as the freedom of movement within public spaces for those in the community who expressly withdraw their consent to the use of optical surveillance devices that record visually or observe their private activity?
Thank you, Caroline. I'll go to Acting Director David Greaves for response.
Mr Mayor, and thank you, Carolyn, for your questions. The Surveillance Devices Act of 1999 excludes activity where people cannot have a reasonable expectation of privacy because they are in a public place, such as a road, footpath, alley, parkland, public recreation reserve. Noting that the Safe City network managed by Council is highly visible, signposted and covers only public places. The CCTV feeds in relation to the data captured on these cameras from the City Safe network are accessed by Victoria Police and 2 trained council officers, and the data collected by the cameras is securely held and not stored beyond 30 days unless for criminal investigations. Facial recognition is strictly prohibited. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. John Nell DeCoca. There we go. How are you, Jean?
Well, thank you. And yourself?
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, please, your timer starts when you start.
Thanks. For the record, my name is Jean. My surname is Nell de Kooiker, and I'm here asking trees questions about the budget, but it's very much about trees and green infrastructure, more so than specifically broader. Let me start by saying congratulations on being recognised as a World Tree City. It's a wonderful opportunity for the Council to access an incredible network, a global network of cities that practice urban forest excellency. It also signals to the residents, to the city, the state, the world, that the city of Geelong is committed to develop, maintain a healthy city with a healthy tree canopy now and into the future. But with that, that recognition is a responsibility. It's a responsibility to preserve and manage all trees. That's not a public World Tree City recognition. It's a World Tree City recognition. The other 8 cities, along with Geelong, that applied and were recognised as World Tree Cities, all have established significant tree registers and policy and local laws protecting trees on private land. The City of Geelong in Victoria actually led the way in 2015 when you adopted the urban forest strategy and the action plan, the commitment to develop a tree register. In the 8 years since then, the majority of councils in Victoria either adopted, following your great lead, or they are in the process, even now, of developing a tree register, recognising that it works. I know that this is a council with not a lot of money, and I know that there are very, very important issues that also must get attention, and we've heard that tonight. So there's no denying that. But I'm coming here and I'm saying, have you put money aside after 8 years to develop a register? And I'm also saying, but if not, we as a community are coming and say, let's develop a public-private partnership. We'll help you. That tree register is also part of the heritage plan. It's not just a record, it invigorates the community about trees. We're saying, we'll help you at no cost to the council. Will you take us up on that offer?
Thank you for your question, Sean, and your passion. Go to Acting Director David Greaves for response.
Thank you, Sean, for your question. As you noted quite clearly, like many governments and organisations, the city is feeling the impacts of inflation and rising costs. Our projects and services are under financial pressure, meaning the development of our 23-24 budget has been challenging to say the least.
hence our offer that we'll
Yes.
do it at no cost.
Thank you, Jean. We'll let him
The city has
answer
had
the
to
full question.
focus first and foremost on being responsible financially. The city have examined all parts of our organisation to find savings and free up funds and invest back into the community. However, the city has had to make some difficult decisions, and we understand these will cause disappointment. The proposed budget does not include any funding for locally managed significant tree register. Budget submissions feedback is currently being sought from the public, and you may wish to make a submission as part of that. Having said that, more than 50 of our trees are included on the Heritage Victoria's Register of Significant Trees. Community members can nominate trees for the register as well, and we encourage you to contribute if you wish. The city has also commenced work to identify the most effective measure for tree protection on private land and in urban environments within Geelong. The work includes a review of the city's existing protections for trees on private land in the planning and scheme and the city's policies and local laws. We will also explore external benchmarking and look at what other councils have put in place and across the process for each option identified, including timelines, costs and appropriate community consultation. We do appreciate your offer of support for us in this work. If a significant tree register is identified as a viable option to protect trees within the city will engage with community members including Cool Geelong, to advance this work.
Thank you, David.
So should I assume you will go back on the action plan from 2015? Anyway, hold that. I'll ask that next month.
Thank you, Jean.
We
have no doubt.
The second question is about the organisational restructure. The city recently implemented a new organisational structure with 5 directorates: planning and design, community service delivery, city infrastructure, customer, community and economy, and then strategy, governance and corporate. According to the city's website, these changes prioritise specific areas necessary for delivering on the organisation's strategy, ensuring clear and distinct roles for each directorate, and a sharper focus. Pertinently and very importantly, environment and sustainability do not feature prominently in the new structure. In fact, if you go to the website, you don't see those words on the structure at all. The Greater Geelong Community Plan 21 to 25 lists sustainability, or sustainable growth and environment, as one of its 4 core strategy directions. The introductory comments in the proposed budget reiterated that sustainable growth and environment remains a strategic direction that guides the budget. And then under the 5 health and well-being priorities, you list tackling climate change and its impact on health. Given these considerations, can the city clarify how the strategic direction and priority will be pursued within the clear and distinct role and clearer focus of the new directorates that do not clearly reference the environment, sustainability and climate change? And who will be the designated strategic and accountable lead within the City of Greater Geelong on these important policy objectives in the future to ensure policy cohesion and effective action within and across the 5 directorates?
Thank you, Jean. We know this is an area of great interest with the community.
John. The city's recent organisation structure change has aligned like functions to be housed together, providing a clearer focus moving forward. This includes ensuring that the strategic environment planning functions are aligned to other strategic planning functions, including land use in the Planning and Design Directorate, which is where the core accountability sits. Additionally, through the city's annual business planning cycle, all directorates align their work plans and activities to the city's strategic priorities to ensure everyone is working to the same priorities and goals.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Jean. Thank you, everybody tonight. We now have reached the 45 minutes allocated for question time this evening. All questions that were submitted will be received and answered directly, and they're published online. So everybody can see the questions, and see their answers online. Thank you very much. We'll now be moving on to petitions and joint letters, and we have a few petitions which have been received this evening. I believe we have 2 petitions to be tabled. Sorry?
Excuse me, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to thank the Chilwell Library Group for their attendance. Disappointed that you didn't get to ask your questions, but I just want to say, keep up.
Please let Councillor Murray finish what he's saying. Let Councillor Murray finish what he's saying, please. Councillor Murray, you can. If we can't. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll be now moving on to section petitions and joint letters which have been received. Sir, if you cannot, sir, if you're going to yell at people of the audience, if we can, thank you, sir. Sir, please stop that disorderly conduct in the chamber. Please, refrain from yourself, or, sir. Thank you, sir. We'll now be moving on to petitions and joint letters as stated. Councillor Mason, I believe you have petitions to be tabled. Make sure it's turned on. It'll take a moment or two. If you are. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Yes. Waiting for it to be ready, Councillor Mason. It'll be up right now. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Question and submission time is now over. It's
I have 2 petitions
that
have been submitted through the member for South Barwon, Darren Cheeseman MP. There are 2 petitions. The first one is a petition calling on the City of Greater Geelong to provide funding for the adequate staffing of the Armstrong Creek Library facility to enable community members to be able to access and benefit from the use of this facility. There's 216 signatories to that petition, and the second petition through the member for South Barwon, Darren Cheeseman MP, calls on the City of Greater Geelong to adequately fund the Highton Library to allow it to remain running adequately staffed and with current hours of business. That's got 520 signatories, Mr Mayor.
520? Thank you very much, Councillor Mason. We'll consider those 2 petitions tabled. That's one. All right. Any other petitions or joint letters to be tabled this evening by the Council? Thank you. We'll move into section 2, reports. The first item on the agenda is 26 January community engagement. Now I'll be recommending to move this one. I need a seconder in Deputy Mayor Aiken. All right. Now this report summarises a 6 months conversation with First Nations people and the community regarding 26 January, and it presents recommendations about how the city could mark the day. The consultation was supported by advice received from the Killinjit Aboriginal Advisory Committee, a First Nations Advisory Committee to Council. The consultation process resulted in 952 survey responses, of which 447 were from First Nations people, equivalent to 12.5% of the local First Nations community, and all responses, 100% from First Nations peoples, expressed a wish for a change in the way the day is commemorated. Across the broader community, 68% of survey respondents said change was needed, with 32% opposing change. There was widespread support for greater inclusion of First Nations culture and history into the way 26th of January is commemorated in Greater Geelong. Most of the feedback from First Nations and the broader Geelong community called for Council to reflect on the loss of land and the erosion of culture, kinship and language experienced by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people since the 26th of January 1788. Now, I have more to be said on this, but I will throw over to my Deputy Mayor, Mayor Aiken, and then the Council with further comment. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. First thing I want to actually explain to the community on this particular issue is that Council actually made a decision that our relationship with our First Nations people and reconciliation shouldn't just actually occur at a portfolio level, it actually should occur at a leadership level. And this is the first time ever that we've actually said that our relationships and reconciliation should be managed by the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor as the leaders of Geelong, and establish relationships with the leaders of our Indigenous community. And I'm really proud this is the first piece of work that's come under that new governance and leadership model within the City of Greater Geelong. And this whole process has actually come from an initiative that the council group actually wants to undertake in our reconciliation and relationships with our First Nations people, and that is essentially we want to work and walk together. It was part of the Uluru Statement of the Heart, which actually said, try to take as many people with you on this journey of reconciliation. And that's certainly what this particular council is attempting to do. The process about the 26th of January has been a 6-month process. I should say that that consultation actually involved no discussions about the constitutional referendum, but I'll make a statement on that in a couple of seconds' time. But what the council group is actually doing is we wish to try to take as many people as possible on the journey of reconciliation and actually understanding the importance of why we have to actually reconcile our relationships with First Nations people. And this process is going to be the first of many that the City of Greater Geelong has. I want to point out Julie Saylor-Briggs, who is a proud First Nation person and our senior consultant associated with giving us advice in the city about how to work with our Indigenous mob. And this consultation process and the recommendations that are essentially being presented in the report tonight have very much been led in the spirit of inclusion, in the spirit of participation, and very much by the manner in which Julie conducts her work as an employee of the City of Greater Geelong. I'm proud of the outcome as a councillor. I think it is fantastic number of the initiatives that we're supporting tonight. One of those is we will no longer call the 26th of January Australia Day. We actually will call it the 26th of January. Other significant steps that we will be taking, we will have mid-morning acknowledgement and reconciliation and discussion about treaty. We will actually set up yarns and other Indigenous processes of which our broader community can participate in the discussions about First Nation reconciliation. We will hold an official opening ceremony for cultural celebrations and events for our Indigenous people. And importantly, we will actually shift. One of our most important civic responsibilities in local government is actually bestowing citizenship to people in Australia. And after tonight, with the recommendation, if it is adopted by the council group, we will be saying that citizenship should no longer occur on the 26th of January. I think this is a very good approach, the way that this council has actually taken this issue, and is reflected by the information that has been and the consultation that has occurred over the last 6 months. In respect to the constitutional referendum and the issue about a voice to Parliament, it was not part of this consultation process, but the council group has actually started that discussion process ourselves. I'm actually hoping a report will come sooner than later, which actually endorses the position of this particular council group in relation to the referendum and the voice to Parliament. The council has already endorsed the Uluru Statement of the Heart. The Statement from the Heart actually says we should support treaty, and it also says we should support voice to Parliament. So if we've already endorsed that statement, I think the community can get a clear understanding of what the majority of this council's position will be about the voice to Parliament. And on a personal level, my voice to Parliament certainly is the referendum, and the Geelong community should vote yes.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Aiken. I'll now open up to the council group for comment. Any councillors who wish to speak to this item? Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Having held the Aboriginal Affairs portfolio for the last 2 years, I'm really pleased it's been elevated to be presided over by you and the Deputy Mayor. I'm also proud to have carried the mantle to this point in representing the desires of the Killinjit Committee to the full council to gain the support, as Councillor Aitken said, of the Uluru Statement from the Heart in 2021 and in mobilising the whole community consultation on the 26th of January last year. I'm also proud of all officers involved, and especially Officer and Torres Strait Islander woman Julie Saylor-Briggs, who has led a very stable, thoughtful, non-confronting, inclusive approach to the whole question of the 26th of January. And as Julie has said repeatedly, this is not about changing the date, but improving the way we celebrate 26th of January. How to make it better for the 3,750 or more City of Greater Geelong First Nation people, so they don't feel marginalised, so they don't feel sad or ignored, as to feel the need to stay home or to go to Surf Coast or Ballarat to garner emotional support on the 26th of January. Mr Mayor, we must also remember that the new Australian citizens must also be educated on the true history of colonial settlement and its effects on the 250 Aboriginal nations flourishing on the 26th of January 1788. Indeed, we have a responsibility to help them, and it should not be difficult. Many of them have come to Australia for a better life and quickly remember the injustices in their own countries of origin. Mr Mayor, of course, older Australians like myself were never taught the whole history at school. We were only taught about Aboriginal problems. We were never taught historical facts well documented in British and Australian government archives. Never taught that there were frontier wars, even as late as the 1930s. Never taught that massacres and poisonings of food and water resources, especially in Geelong and the Western District, occurred. Never taught that British and international law of the time on native populations was ignored and broken. Never taught that terra nullius was a lie and the requirement to establish proper relations with the First Nation people and their right to land and sustenance was deliberately overlooked. And we were never taught that the real purpose of the Stolen Generation program was to eliminate culture and language, to prohibit the speaking of Aboriginal languages. Mr Mayor, all of this makes 26th of January a day of sorrow, a day to grieve the loss of culture, the loss of country, spiritual and physical, and the loss of family networks. Mr Mayor, that is intergenerational trauma. And I still feel the shame that we do pronounce support for self-determination in many international aid programs when we still have difficulty to implement them in our own backyard. So I fully support the measures recommended. They will be important local steps in a longer pathway towards truth-telling, stronger reconciliation with our First Nations brothers and sisters. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mason. Before I close, any other councillors wish to comment? Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I was equally Aboriginal Affairs portfolio holder for some 4 to 5 years, in fact, and was part of the first Aboriginal Action Plan, the inaugural plan that Council developed all those years ago, and worked very constructively with the Wadawurrung and the Wadawurrung people in our city and also other community members. I'd like to really applaud Julie Saylor, who led our works in this space, and as Councillor Mason acknowledged, what Julie did well, and I really appreciate the work that she did, along with the community engagement, which was very respectful, was she found a way to not have our Geelong community divided, like we've seen in so many other local government areas when they've been working through this topic, but in fact has brought us closer together. there is no mention of changing the date, as Councillor Mason has indicated. In fact, a lot of what is in here is about paying respect, further education, and also enhancing the way that we have connectiveness in the community on that day. I really applaud Julie and the community for the way that they've gone about this. In fact, the referendum on the voice was never part of this charter. It's a completely different discussion. And whilst councillors around the chamber will have their own personal views, and we've heard Councillor Aitkins, that is a discussion for another day if we decide to have that. What we're doing today is really acknowledging and noting and adopting the views of the community that we engaged with over the date, the 26th of January.
Thank you very much, Councillor Contell. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I've got a prop. I've put my glasses on, the Indigenous design artwork, glasses to assist me here. Look, I'm proud to speak on this, and I think it's a big step forward for this council to have this before in the chamber tonight. So it's about formally changing the way the city will commemorate January the 26th for next year and beyond thereafter, and the future approach to activities on that date and around that date. This consultation, nearly 1,000 survey responses, clearly showed there is a diversity of views on Australia's National Day, January the 26th. And of the First Nations respondents, 100% wanted a change to the way this day is commemorated. To them, January the 26th for the First Nations people represents a day of mourning. So there was just under 70% of the broader community feedback. The overall sentiment was for change. It might be ironic, I'm not sure of the timing, but this has come before us tonight. We're in the middle of Sir Doug Nicholls' round in the AFL. Sorry Day is this Friday. Mabo Day is next week. And National Reconciliation Week starts this Saturday. So the timing is great, I think, for this to come before the chamber tonight and hopefully gain real support. It is a divisive issue. I received an abusive phone call today in relation to this. Some gentleman, well, perhaps he wasn't a gentleman, but had read the report in the ad and he wanted to let off some steam, and I was his target. It's about education. It's about bringing people on the journey. And I want to, again, other councillors have mentioned, but Julie Saylor-Briggs, I could listen to her for hours on this topic. She was just brilliant. So I want to thank Julie for her contribution to this, Councillor Jim for yours, and the whole Killigit Aboriginal Advisory Committee, I think have led from the front and to where we are now. So I think there's a real momentum on this particular topic. There's a change of attitude, I think, within the community, and I take my lead on this from my daughters who see things a little bit differently, and I can learn from them, which I think is just fantastic. So the time is for change, and this is a start. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. No other councillors to speak. I'll now close on the topic. Well, it's clear that the appreciation and respect of Julie Saylor-Briggs is shared by the entire council group. We're very fortunate to have her with us. I will just summarise some of the outcomes that are in the recommendation itself, and that is to support the development and delivery of a formalised First Nations peoples acknowledgement and cultural events across the Geelong region on the day, including acknowledgement, recognition and truth-telling ceremony in Johnstone Park, Billabong, a ceremony to raise the Australian, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flags at City Hall, an official opening for cultural celebrations and events, continued work with organisers of events on the 26th of January to recognise First Nations peoples and include First Nations cultural activities, to reschedule citizenship ceremonies to another day within 3 days of 26th of January, and incorporate First Nations people's elements into the ceremonies, as we do actually on every other citizenship ceremony bar the one on Australia Day, due to understandable circumstances, and cease referring to 26 January as Australia Day and refer to it as 26 January. These are some of the recommendations, the outcomes of this report, but it's not limited to them itself. It's also recommended that the Council advocate to the Federal Government on behalf of the community regarding a conversation about changing the date. In addition to this, in regards to 26 January, it is recommended that Council reaffirm its commitment to the Uluru Statement of the Heart, having first expressed support in 2021. Now, as stated, there has been different views which were in the survey, but as Mayor and as Leader of the Council, my opinion is this. The outcomes of this, what will make us better as a society? What will bring us closer together and help us work together to make it better for everybody around us? I do believe the recommendations, the outcomes in this report lead us in that direction. And that's why this item, I'll have a vote in my favour. I'm incredibly proud to be the portfolio holder now, to have elevated it to the mayoral position, to show our respect for First Nations community around us, and hope that I can do that well. And with that, I put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? The item is carried. Item number 2, Hamlin Park Recreation Reserve Master Plan, moved by Councillor Contell, seconded by Councillor Murray. Councillor Contell, please.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. The report that's come before us tonight is regards to the Hamlin Park Recreation Reserve Master Plan. Many would know that as the home of the Bell Park Dragons in terms of netball, cricket and football. It also provides a space for the ballroom dancers, also has scouts on that site, and also has obviously community engagement in terms of park and recreation spaces. The previous plan that was developed was in 2010. Many of those action items that were in that first plan had now been completed, and the plan equally is somewhat outdated. There was some great work that came out of the previous plan, and in fact, a lot of it started just as I was elected to council in 2010. We developed the club rooms, a new scoreboard, there was lighting that's been put in since, new netball courts, obviously the partnership with the Western Heights School, and the railway line was removed from the rail trail there, the Tom McKeon trail, by the then Liberal government, in fact. There was also shelters put in for the netball players. But since then, the needs have grown, not only for that community in and around that Hamlin Heights area, particularly in Calvert Street, and things have changed since the schools have moved on and the needs have increased. And so the master planning process that was out for public contribution had some 125 contributors and also about 1,000 odd views online. The stakeholders and those that helped us draft the plan were Bell Park Sport and Recreational Club, Geelong Ballroom Dance Club, Hamlin Park Tennis Club, the Scouts Victoria, Western Heights College, and also many community representatives. So tonight is about adopting the plan. Unfortunately, we don't have funding allocated just yet for the initiatives that may come out of the plan in the future. However, they will certainly be considerations, as we have done with many other plans that we have for sporting and recreational facilities in future budgets. But some of the major works that are being suggested include facility improvements for sport and recreation in that area, particularly the pavilion, including the development of change room facilities and toilets for not only the netball but for the other codes of sport in that area, and also for the referees, installing further security lighting, refurbishing the Alex Risen Pavilion to meet contemporary sporting standards, and also including the social facilities, upgrading the ballroom dance facilities with improved access and refurbishment to their toilets and change rooms, kitchen, and also access. upgrading the Hamlin Heights Tennis Club facility, which would also include the renewal of the public courts and also lighting of those courts, and develop a landscape improvement plan to protect the flora and fauna, particularly the mature trees on site, so that we can extend the shade in that area. And then a small modification that we made in the plan just in the last week or so was to appease the feedback from the local community group in that area, and I particularly thank and call out Mr. Barney Wilson. And the changes were really to consider a nature-based improvement to the southern playground and open space area that acknowledges the park's connection with Wadawurrung people and the traditional owners of the land, as well as the importance of the local environment to create a distinct and welcoming pedestrian entrance into that play space. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll put it to my fellow councillors to make further comment if they wish, and for the chamber to consider the recommendation of adopting the plan.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Contell, who's really summarised it quite well. But I just want to just a few things that perhaps even Councillor Contell has said already. But 43 years ago, I kicked 5 on this ground in my first ever game in Geelong at the Mighty Dragons, and I think I saw Jeff Jarvis come in. I don't know whether he's been caught up with the library crew on his left. No, he's waving down there, but he's been part of this club since then until now. Still president, Jeff. Yep, good work. And it's one of Geelong's great community clubs, and certainly, you know, the football club. What they do within a community, any sporting club for that matter, but Bell Park do it as well as anyone. And of course the cricket club, but the football club too, it's leads the way in the football all abilities team, which has received many highlights over the past few years. Another great addition to the club. And the Western Heights College certainly making great insteps in relation to sports programs, and it certainly assists the Barwon Sports Academy, Geelong United Basketball Association, and Geelong Netball Association, and AFL Barwon. So it's really stepped up in the sports program, Western Heights, and doing great things, and so they have plans there as well. Just in relation back to the footy club, I was up there only a few weeks ago watching a game of footy, and with the facilities have changed, they have improved, of course, over the years, but there's still a lot to do. And to bring it up to a real good standard, not that it's not now, but certainly can be improved. And of course, with the female participation that all clubs are facing now, it's a real challenge. So the master plan looks at that, and Geelong's best kept secret is the Geelong Ballroom Dance Club. If you haven't been there, it's worth just a visit to go up. You don't have to dance, although they certainly invite you to, but it is a brilliant building. It's very unassuming from outside, but once you get inside, it's a very brilliant room. And like a lot of the structure around, it's old, so it needs some major work. They had a grant from the city a couple of years ago where plans were done. But of course, those costs have blown out, and I think they're now about $2 million to do some works for the Geelong Ballroom Dance Club. And of course, they have the problem with asbestos there. But it is Geelong's best kept secret, and the Hamlin Park Tennis Club has also been assisted by the city over the recent years, and with an upgrade, and it's a great facility. So the whole area is welcoming. As I say, the Bell Park Dragons are certainly a great club, and I might just indicate that white picket fence, I think, may have only gone up just recently. It certainly makes the oval look great. So the master plan is a master plan that's not funded, and we do well with master plans coming through the chamber. So this is another one. So we keep the powder dry, hold our breath that there'll be funding in the very near future to assist in this master plan. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Murray, do any other councillors wish to make comment? If not, Back to Councillor Contell to close.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor, and thanks for that, Councillor Murray. I'd also like to acknowledge Jeff Jarvis, who's been there for forever, and he's been a tremendous person to work with, along with the various committee members that have helped over the years, and there's been some wonderful people that have worked tirelessly to support not only the clubs that are involved in Hamlin Park, but also the broader interests of the community. Rodney Brown comes to mind as well from the cricket section, and I know Michelle Gertz was there for a long period of time. Also, the one project that's in here that may not catch the eye of many, but is one that's been discussed for decades, is the removal of the chain wire fence along Calvert Street. I know there's been many discussions that I've had there during times when I've been watching the footy, and so it is actually mentioned in the master plan to be removed, and if we can get a few bob, that would be probably one of the first ones I wouldn't mind getting done. So the community will be happy about that. So that's all I've got to say. It's a positive plan, and we look forward to seeing it executed.
Thank you very much, Councillor Contell. With that, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? The item is carried. Now, item number 3, consideration of submissions and adoption of Amendment C 443 GGEE and Planning Permit PP 7502022. Norlane Community Initiatives, 4 to 8 Spruhan Avenue, Norlane. Moved by Deputy Mayor Aiken, seconded by Councillor Mason. Deputy Mayor Aiken.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Look, there's a famous saying that the law is an ass, and this is actually an example of the planning law is an ass. And the reason for that is that planning laws were actually restricting good common sense in this particular issue. And the good common sense was that there's a fantastic organisation called Norlane Community Initiatives, which is doing fantastic work in the northern suburbs of Geelong, and in particular in Norlane. And they actually, I first got involved with them in 2017 on this particular issue, where they were operating from the old Baptist church in Spruhan Avenue, and they were regularly being broken into. An example was we'd been able to arrange from WorkSafe to get 100 laptops for them, and the laptops had only been there for about a week, and the building was broken into and they lost all of the laptops. And so they actually recognised that they needed a more secure premises at that particular site so that they can continue the good work that they were doing with the community. But they encountered the planning laws, and the planning laws said that there were restrictive covenants and you could not have 2 buildings on one subdivided site within that precinct of Norlane. And as a consequence, they actually couldn't build the buildings and the vision that they had for that particular site. So we've actually gone through an immense process to try to address the planning laws, and we've reached this crescendo tonight where essentially we are recommending the adoption of an amendment to our planning scheme to enable 2 buildings to be built on a particular site location in Spruhan Avenue in Norlane, and give the Norlane Community Initiatives organisation the opportunity to continue their nationally recognised, I don't know if people have seen the 730 report and other reports on that particular organisation, but this amendment will enable them to continue their fantastic work, to conclude the building works that they would like to actually establish a facility at the Spruhan Avenue site, and help address the endemic and systematic entrenchment of disadvantage and vulnerability that exists in that local community. So on a personal level, thank you to them for their persistence over the last 5 years. But I do want to point out, and I have mentioned it before when this amendment's come before council, I do want to thank our planning officers as well too, because the normal response would have been, the law's an ass, it's too hard and we can't do anything about it. Well, what our planning officers did do was they said, we understand the significance of the work that you're doing in our local community, And we do need to actually try to assist you and make sure that the planning laws are changed, and that is actually what's before council tonight. If we adopt this, we ask the minister to adopt it, and then what we will be doing, we'll be issuing a planning permit to Norlane Community Initiatives to finish their building works, have 2 separate buildings on the site location, and importantly, give us hope in the northern suburbs to that community that their vulnerabilities and the issues that they confront will be addressed, and importantly, that their council actually cares about them as well too.
Deputy Mayor Aiken, and I also didn't realise you were so passionate about a phrase which I believe was coined by Charles Dickens many, many years ago. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Aiken has said it nearly all. He said it so well. Of course, the AS, the people have worked along with the AS, and it's now they seem to be going in the same direction. And so now those same people will be protected in the future by the same law. So we're really happy about that. And look, this is an example of not-for-profits and volunteers being the kernel, the heart of our society. And it's so important, all the work that so many volunteers are doing, exemplified by the Norlane Community Initiatives, who are at the moment, I understand, they do neighbourhood meals and people's pantry and music lessons and so on, so many different things. I don't know whether they've still got another 100 computers, Councillor Aiken, but anyway, I commend all the work that's been done and thank the officers and support the motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mason. Does anybody wish to speak on this? If not, I'll throw back to Deputy Mayor Aiken to close.
I'm going to take the opportunity to just talk a little bit more about the community of Norlane because they deserve it. The Norlane Community Initiatives hold a Monday night meal service which serves up to about 200 people that live in the local community. The difference about the meal service that Norlane Community Initiative operates is that you have to actually actively participate in the process to delivery of the meal or clean up afterwards. So in other words, it's not the traditional handout model that we're used to in terms of Australia or even the English model. You actually have to either peel a carrot, peel a potato, wash dishes, or just assist elderly people to actually sit at their table. It is a damn good experience for everybody in the Geelong community to go out and have a look at it in terms of what they're doing on Monday nights. They've actually just also opened up a new community face at Labuan Square as well too. So they've taken over a retail space that has not been operating since 1976 when the Corio Village opened, and they are working with the local community that's coming to Labuan Square. And I should also point out that Norlane Community Initiatives is not Norlane Community Centre, and I'm proud of what the Norlane Community Centre is actually doing as well too, that run meals programs, run workshops and other things to assist people to self-help and to actually restore hope to that community. And whenever we can help Norlane and we can help that community, I think we have a responsibility as councillors to do that.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Greatly appreciated. With that, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? The item is carried. Item number 4 on the agenda. Year-to-date quarterly financial report, March 2023. Moved by Councillor Harwood, seconded by Deputy Mayor Aiken. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. To say the council finances have been in the news of late would probably be quite an understatement, given the activities that we've been encountering in the last 12 months and beyond. The city started out with the intent of about a $1.2 million surplus for the 22-23 year, but clearly circumstances that have fallen upon the council, that is not going to be the case, and we're actually tracking towards about a $8 million operating deficit against our forecast. But the unfavourable forecast is materially driven by external and professional services and depreciation. Basically, we've had an increase in staff through the organisation through various areas. We've had external costs increase, particularly around waste and recycling. And these have had, I guess, a combined impact, among other things in particular, well documented the increase of construction material to actually do our capital projects has had a serious effect on our budget as well. The variances in relation to that have been substantial, as I touched on, the variances in the external services, in particular around, we've had professional services, which are our consultants' levels has been increased, and also we've had various legal obligations to meet as well. So these all add up to where we see quite a serious deficit. But the good news in that regard is we do expect to be back in a surplus in the next budget, the 23-24 budget. Basically, the budget itself, which I think would be more concerning for the community as a whole, the draft budget is out for feedback, and that feedback will help guide future budgets, and also there's a submission process that will follow the budget. And I strongly encourage anyone in their community who has anything to submit to that process to please do so. You can find the details online, and that will help us form the final budget and also continue to give the council guidance as to where the community thinks its money should be best spent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Deputy Mayor Aiken.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I'm taking a deep breath because, look, it's actually not good news to actually say that you're going to be running a deficit of $8.1 million when originally you thought you were going to make a surplus of $100,000. What I do say is I'm actually relieved that it's now out in the public arena. It's actually been really difficult as a councillor over the last probably 4 to 5 months, because we were starting to get all this news internally about the difficult financial position that the organisation was in, and the significant financial volatility that we were confronting as a council group. So for public transparency, I'm happy it's out there now. The community can have a look at our quarterly financial report, actually see the finances of the organisation, ask more questions as well too, and we certainly do encourage that as well as the council group. But it is a relief, because I wanted to talk about this months ago and I wasn't allowed to, and I understand why, because we have rules and we have a requirement to keep information confidential, but it's out there now that we are facing significant financial challenges. I mean, the state has released their budget today and we see their financial challenges. Unfortunately, the difference between the state and federal government, at local government, we only have one tax that we have, and that's actually called rates, and it's actually capped. So we actually can't increase our rates to cover the deficits and expenditure that's demanded of us by our community. And in fact, we have no other taxing powers at local government. We actually can't go out and generate new income sources under a taxing regime, because we only have one authority under the Local Government Act, and that's actually called rates. So I'm pleased that the information's out there. I'm not happy about it, and no councillors should be happy that the organisation is trading with an $8 million deficit. Councils cannot continue to operate with deficits. I mean, we use surpluses to pay for our new initiatives. We use surpluses to pay for capital works. We use surpluses to actually respond to community needs in areas that we have as well too. And while we continue to have deficits, which at this point of time, we're actually looking at 3 deficits within a 4-year period as the council group. So we can't continue that. And if anyone tells you anything different, they're actually lying to you about your responsibilities as councillors. Our responsibilities are to respond to the community needs, to make sure we manage the limited resources that we have, and to ensure that we address the majority of the community. You know what I loved about tonight's question time, Mr Mayor? The diversity of issues that we have to confront as a council group. We had such a diversity of responsibilities and requests to it, and it was good that the community gets to experience that, because that's actually what we experience every single day as councillors of the City of Greater Geelong. We have 136 services. We are running the organisation at a deficit at the present time, and we cannot continue to do that as a council group.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Aiken. Open it up for councillors to comment. Tell.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, as has been indicated by Councillor Harwood and Councillor Aitken, there's nothing pleasant about the financial situation that we've confronted and that we're currently articulating to the community. It has occurred under our watch, and we need to own that. And certainly, I don't believe there's any councillor around this chamber that's trying to discard that. But what we do need to do is make good financial decisions going forward to get our budget and our financial situations into surplus as quickly as we possibly can. The budget that's out there for draft is a difficult budget. I've been a councillor since 2010, and we've delivered some amazing budgets over that period where we have had so many capital projects occurring at any given time. There's been so many multicultural groups, Indigenous groups, many volunteering groups, sporting organisations that have benefited vastly from the funds that have gone out from the City of Greater Geelong. The amount of employment that we have created as a city. When I talk about Geelong, I talk about all of us here because we all pay rates. So it's all of our money that's going into the council. We've created an amazing amount of employment over that time. When state government provide funding for initiatives, on many occasions, it's a minor amount that then sees council have to wear the burden of the remainder of the funding for some of the projects that we see, and we've done a tremendous job with that. However, at the moment, we do need to deal with the budget that we have in front of us, and that is one of deficit. No one wants to pick any particular projects to not go ahead over the next 12 months, whether it be libraries, swimming pools, or the various other projects that we may or may not have state funding to try and implement. And we've tried to be very respectful as a council law group, because we can all go rogue on our own and put our own projects forward. I've been shouting from the rooftops for free parking my entire councillor career, if you want to call it that, and yet I'm saddened that that has been cut, other than on weekends, in this budget. But what we'll all be doing is, in the future, as soon as we can possibly get this budget in a position that is starting to show that we're heading towards a positive, we'll be putting those projects back on the table and trying to get them back over the line. As was said with the swimming pool, it was this council that decided to have the swimming pool open during winter, and it'll be this council that will get that swimming pool open again in winter as soon as we possibly can. With the libraries, we're all very supportive of the libraries. All organisations need to work collectively, and all organisations need to look at their financials, and not one person can tell me that any organisation out there is running so slick that it can't find efficiencies and effectiveness in its organisation. And if those people tell you that, they are lazy and they are not meeting their responsibilities. To just throw the responsibility back on the City of Greater Geelong and the people of the City of Greater Geelong to fund all these things on the wish list is not right. Those people that are managing the other organisations in Geelong need to do their job and need to look at efficiency and effectiveness, and need to look at savings in the businesses and the organisations that they are running, and take responsibility for the responsibility that's been put upon them when they're employed in those organisations. And we will do the same here, and we'll be held to account for that as well. For those that we have let down with the draft budget, I sincerely apologise for that, and I'll do all that I can to try to deliver on the projects that we have had in the system previously, and those that we have committed to bring to Geelong in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Contel. Greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. What was the question? I'm happy to hear it.
This isn't question and answer time. Thank you. Any other comments from the council group? Councillor Cadwell.
Mr. Mayor, hopefully you can hear me. Obviously, we've discussed the draft budget and the difficult situation that we find ourselves in. The draft budget does reflect the decisions made by the council. Those decisions reflect the values of the city. Those decisions are incredibly hard, And I do think that the degree of community passion and outrage shows that the community don't agree with the priorities and the decisions made. I think we're all hopeful that the council can return to affordability so that we can not only restore confidence, but we can continue to meet our community expectations and run a good and sustainable organisation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cadwell. Any councillors' comment before I throw to Councillor Harwood to close? Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We can have this discussion until the cows come home, literally, on our budget as such, but quite simply, as was stated, we have to live within our means. Our means at this point in time have been affected, but the future is very bright for the council. It still is a matter of how we go about, first and foremost, is funding the community needs and the services. That is our core function. And unfortunately, we've probably lost our focus a little bit there and been a bit more, I guess, inward focused. It's time to look out to the community and to listen to what we're hearing tonight's a great example of that. And I can assure you this particular council will take that on board, and that is what you'll see in the future with our finances, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. With that, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All of those against? The item is carried. Now, Section 5, or point number 5, is Community Grants 2023-24 Guidelines. Moved by Deputy Mayor Aiken, seconded by Councillor Harwood. Deputy Mayor Aiken.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Look, our community grants program in the City of Geelong has actually been very successful since this council introduced it in 2017, and in fact expanded it in terms of the capital works program. We doubled it to about $3 million from the original $1 million. Tonight, we've actually got a new set of guidelines that come before us. We've actually always committed that we continuously review our rules and regulations in the City of Greater Geelong, and this is example tonight. What is some of the highlights that are coming out of the recommendation that's before us tonight as councillors is that if we adopt these guidelines, we're actually going to announce our grants program in June of this year, around the same time we potentially adopt the draft budget. And what is important is we are actually saying we are committed towards our grants, so we're not going to remove our grants program. We have actually reduced our total pool of funds available in the grants by 10%. But what we are attempting to do is to try to spread that limited amount of money as wide as possible to the community of Geelong. And some of the things we will be doing is we will be introducing that you cannot have multi-year funding requests, so that you will have to annually actually put in a funding request under the guidelines. We're also going to say that our community events funding, which has been immensely successful with the number of applicants that we've received, that it is preferable that if you do come up with a community event and you want the council to actually fund that event under our grants program, it is preferable that you'll attract at least 300 people to it. And that is just a means at which trying to spread that money further and make sure that more people get benefit from that particular community event. We're also clarifying the planning infrastructure funding by saying that, look, we won't fund business cases and feasibility assessments. The planning funding really is to look at the cost of a particular project, not necessarily the feasibility of it, because it's related towards capital expenditure. We've also, one of the projects I'm proud of in our grants program was the First Nations Cultural Heritage Grants, where we took money from the White People Heritage Grant program, which essentially was the colonial era buildings that existed in the CBD of Geelong. We took $100,000 off that and created our First Nations Heritage Grant program 3 years ago. Well, we've further refined that particular program to actually embrace that we do need to talk to not just the registered Indigenous and Aboriginal parties, we actually do need to talk to the mob that actually exists outside of that group as well too in the allocation of that funding. So we're going to create a 3-step process and I think that's going to enhance the participation in that particular program. And so we're tinkering a bit with the rules, but the whole intent is to try to spread the money further around the community if we can. And I look forward to the applications and the social and capital equity that the Geelong community puts into our grants program. It is about $4.6 million, but the value that the Geelong community gets from it is about $12 or $13 million when you look at the social capital that's been invested in Geelong through our grants program. So thank you to the council group and the officers by not making our grants program part of the now emphasis cuts in our budget. Yes, we have trimmed it by 10%. Yes, we are creating new guidelines to try to spread that money further. And yes, it is a valuable component of our responsibilities as the City of Greater Geelong councillors.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Aiken. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you. I think the summary of that is really the council looking for value for money with the community grants, and there have been cuts to the budget as such, as has been alluded to, but there's still got to be higher accountability for the spend, and I think that's one of the things we're trying to push through. But also make sure that those who perhaps in the past have found it difficult to get access to the council funding or the community grants actually gets that access and gets the help to get the access, and has started to spread that money a little bit further through the community. Because the more money we're able to put through the community organisations, the greater value back to the community as a whole, not just financially, but obviously from a social perspective, so I think, which is also touched on. So I think that's the theme of it, and hopefully that the community grants will actually continue to grow and further finances can be attributed to that because the value is there. Thank you.
Councillor Harwood. Any other councillors to comment? Councillor Contal.
Very quickly, Mr Mayor, look, this really is an important program that we've seen many community groups prosper from over the years. It might be just the difference of $1,000 or $2,000 here or there, whether it's buying sporting equipment, uniforms. I've seen multicultural groups that have benefited from it, buying national costumes, whether it be environment groups, arts, live entertainment, have been assisted by these grants. So it's terrific to see that we're actually going to announce them in June. Equally would ask the community that if you have an idea, please have a look at the different grants that we have, because more times than not, if it's an initiative or idea, that we may have funding that will be able to assist you with that. As councillors, I'd really encourage us to make sure that when we release these, that we spread the word amongst the community. And the City of Greater Geelong also have information sessions to help those groups and individuals to put submissions in, because sometimes it can be a bit daunting. We're trying to make it more and more simple to request grant funding, or at least to put a submission in. So keep your eye out on that. We do advertise in the local paper and also on our website, and as I said, councillors will probably put it on their socials as well.
Councillor Contal. Any other councillors? No, I'll throw back to Deputy Mayor Aiken to close. Excellent. Put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? The item is carried. Item number 6 is planning authorisations. Councillor Staff. Councillor Mason to move, seconded Councillor Cadwell. Councillor Mason.
Mr Mayor, this is just a procedural routine motion. It's a report that proposes to appoint city officers as authorised officers under the Planning and Environment Act 1987. Mr Mayor, relevant city managers have been consulted regarding this recommended appointment and authorisation of Andrew Page. City staff members are appointed as authorised officers to exercise statutory powers under the various acts and regulations, and the Planning Environment Act regulates enforcement and is reliant on authorised officers acting on behalf of this council. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Cadwell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is, as Councillor Mason has indicated, it's really just a procedural matter. I don't have anything further to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Many other councillors wish to comment? No. Sorry, Councillor Mason to close.
Nothing further to add, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? The item is carried. All right, that is the end of section B, or number 2, which is general reports. We'll now move into section 3, where there was a notice of motion which was to be tabled, 3.1, by Councillor Nelson, delivery of library services. Councillor Nelson.
Point of order, if I may, Mr Mayor.
1 second, we'll just let Councillor Nelson speak, thank you.
I'd like to foreshadow that if Councillor Nelson's motion is withdrawn, I will be proposing an amendment.
Shadowed. Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to say a few words.
Point of order.
I'll hear the point of order.
If Councillor Nelson withdraws his motion, there's actually no motion to actually be lost. So unfortunately, Councillor Cadwell cannot foreshadow a motion. The motion actually has to be put and then rejected for the foreshadowing to occur. So it is important what you're actually ruling there, Mr Mayor. Yeah.
No,
and
that
I
is...
seek guidance from governance if, yeah.
Yeah, no, that is a very valid point. I will speak to governance briefly. 1 moment. Thank you. For a foreshadowing to occur, a motion does have to be put and a vote lost for then to be moved. Therefore, if a motion is withdrawn and not voted on at all, foreshadowing cannot be made.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I appreciate the ruling.
Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Library closures are definitely not a way to address a short-term budget issue, and I do not support and will not support the closure of any libraries. And if libraries are closed, I fear they will never reopen and the community will be permanently disadvantaged. The libraries slated for closure have been around for a very, very long time. They are well used, much loved, and they are the best community assets in our municipality. The acting CEO and the acting Geelong CEO and the CEO of the Library Corporation have met to consider how the Library Corporation can consider all libraries open with their current operational hours, and this is a great outcome for our community. Therefore, I withdraw my notice of motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Nelson. There are no notices of motions to be voted on tonight then. We will now enter section 4 of the agenda, urgent business. I believe, sorry, I will ask a general question. Councillors, are there any items to be raised as urgent business this evening? Councillor Maloney.
Thank you, Mayor Sullivan. I'd like to introduce an urgent item for business to be considered by the council group, please.
Okay, thank you. Now, councillors, prior to commencing debate on a proposed motion of urgent business, in order for an item to be considered, as in to insert it into the agenda for us to speak, as part of 3.52.1 of the council's governance rules, councillors must first vote to accept the proposed motion. Can I please have the title of your motion?
Sure, it's, hang on a second, the Transport Innovation Study Tour.
Okay, thank you. Right, for this to be passed, there is a certain amount for councillors who have to vote in favour, and it's a higher than your normal 50% plus 1. So to hear the urgent business, all councillors who are in favour, please raise their hands. Vote. Yeah. Right, no, please hold them up. We need to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, Councillor Nelson, was that up or no? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Being 10 here, 7, that is the votes it requires. You may move your motion. Do you have a seconder for this? Councillor Harwood, excellent. Councillor Maloney, you may please speak to it.
Thank you, Mayor Sullivan. As part of my professional development, I wish to self-fund and attend the Dutch Transport Innovation Study Tour from June 25th to June 30th, 2023 as a delegate of the City of Greater Geelong. I feel that as our city works towards supporting active transport and accessible low-carbon transport options for our residents, that this immersive study tour will provide me with a unique opportunity to gather information that can assist with translating best practice into an Australian context and informing our future decision-making process. If this motion is carried, I will also table a report to Council within 2 months of attending and detailing the learnings from the study tour. I'd like you to please accept the proposed motion that I have emailed all councillors
today.
Just for clarification before going to your seconder, can you just read the exact recommendation verbatim?
Sure thing, thank you. The recommendation put before you is that Council approve for myself, Councillor Maloney, to self-fund her attendance at the Dutch Transport Innovation Study Tour in June 23 as a delegate of the City of Greater Geelong, and table a report to Council within 2 months of attendance detailing the learnings from the study tour.
Thank you. Councillor Harwood.
Am I able to reserve my right for a notice of motion?
Urgence of business becomes a notice of motion. I'm not sure if to get information like I do not believe you can. Let me just confirm with
Let's
governments.
get some advice.
So I know what that's what's like with amendments. Councillor Harwood, you can certainly reserve your right.
Thank you.
Any councillors wish to speak? Councillor Contell.
And with all due respect, I've only just seen the notice of motion. I've seen when it was sent. I was driving, obviously, while it was sent. Can I ask a question?
Urgent items of business, because they, by very nature, they are raised late, not in time to actually be in the agenda itself. Therefore, I do believe it's appropriate that you can ask a question, because we were not given due citizen time to ask it beforehand. So, please.
It's more clarification. Yeah. It obviously articulates it, but so, Councillor Maloney, you're suggesting there'll be no costs whatsoever to the City of Greater Geelong?
No, that's clearly stipulated in the, not only the recommendation, but in the urgent item of business itself. I'll be funding all of it myself.
That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mason.
Mayor, I, like everyone else, was caught by surprise by this motion, and I'm pleased I read the last line, because it was the last line of the report that said it was to be self-funded, and that's extremely important. I think that we need to know as much as we can possibly gather, in that we have a long way to go in active transport and having a lower carbon footprint in this city. So I would welcome any initiatives by councillors to learn more when the opportunity arises. So I think that if our official sanction, our blessing on her trip away, on Councillor Maloney's trip away, might help a few doors to open and facilitate even deeper discussions, I see no reason why we shouldn't approve this. And furthermore, as it's a sanctioned delegation, we would welcome an in-depth report when she returns. So all in all, I think we can benefit from this this expedition or mission. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Asher.
Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Maloney, for bringing this. I have a question about the late notice, because it's obviously something you've had a chance to cost and organise. Why did it come to us so late?
I received some advice this afternoon that I would need to put this through a council meeting in order to for it to be considered as council business, so that I could give a report which would influence council. I requested on the portal quite some time ago, and I just received this information this afternoon, which was great that I got it in time, but I wasn't aware of the procedural nature of what I had to do in order to make sure that that was okay and official. And also I've been on leave, so the late responses left me with a little bit of a limited time frame to respond to that. So I do apologise for the late notice of it, but I'm really grateful to Jacqueline for the highlighting of what needs to be said and to process this if possible. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you for the explanation. Makes sense.
Mayor Aiken?
Not just to see we're asking questions. Can I just ask a question? Councillor Maloney, are you seeking leave of absence during this European tour?
During the 5 days that I'll be away, I will be operating as a councillor, and I'll be not seeking a leave of absence. I'll be able to undertake my councillor duties, and I'll be taking my brand new Surface Pro in the tour of not necessarily Europe, but yes. I'll not be seeking leave of absence.
Second question is, why do you need council endorsement if you've actually already committed to this particular study tour of Europe?
Sorry, I don't need council endorsement to attend the tour or in fact go on any...
I'm having difficulty hearing you. So you're saying you don't need council endorsement?
In my councillor capacity, I would like to acquire council's endorsement to engage with individuals in this study tour. I also would like to be transparent in my actions so that I can bring forth any discussion items to the councillor group that might benefit us in the City of Greater Geelong. I hope that helps to clarify.
Done. You still have a question or two?
Yeah, look, to speak on the motion, look, I don't support it. I'm actually being asked to endorse somebody who's a councillor to go on a study tour in Europe which has not been recommended to us by the organisation from a strategic or a policy sense. I'm also being asked to actually endorse a councillor not to be here during budget time. Our budget is actually going to be voted on the 27th of June. I don't understand how the councillor can fulfil their duties as a councillor during this significant period of community consultation that's being undertaken with a budget process. And I respect that Councillor Maloney, if she wishes to make this decision, she can do it personally and actually undertake the study tour of Europe during this very significant time. But I don't believe I'm comfortable enough as a councillor endorsing one of my colleagues essentially to actually undertake a study tour of Europe when we are in the peak period of community consultation and discussion about our budget process, and then possibly not even being here during the vote, which is a possibility, Councillor Maloney. Technology, as someone, you've constantly reminded us about how technology can actually fail. It would be extremely disappointing if you can't dial in from Copenhagen or Paris or France or wherever you may be. I'm happy for you to make a personal decision to actually go and travel, but I certainly don't feel comfortable as a councillor using my vote to endorse this to actually occur during that particular time. I don't think you've established the reason from a policy or a procedural process why you need endorsement from the council group. And I am concerned about a councillor's duties and responsibilities when we have a budget time and a budget process, and one should be accessible completely for the community. And unfortunately, I don't believe operating from the other side of the world and different time zones actually makes you accessible as a councillor to the community. And so I cannot use my vote to endorse one of my council colleagues. Yeah.
Thank you, Aiken. Councillor Mohi? Sorry, put your hand up before I didn't realise if you want to speak or not.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I don't see an issue with Councillor Maloney's request. I believe that the council can only benefit from your attendance at this, and I congratulate you on your initiative, and if supported tonight, I wish you all the best.
Councillor Cadwell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, appreciate that. I do note that there are a number of councillors who in fact have been noticeably absent from budget discussions so far, so I don't know that that should necessarily be held up as a reason to not approve this request. I'm sure that Councillor Maloney has thought very seriously about the dates and is quite conscientious in the discharge of her councillor duties. I also note that Councillor Maloney has indicated that there are great research opportunities in her connection to Deakin, which I think we as a council should be upholding, and that she's also indicated in this proposal that there is an opportunity to provide a report back to council around the findings and the experiences that she's had, which she feels will strongly benefit the council group and council and the City of Greater Geelong. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cadwell. No further councillors to comment. I too myself might make some comments, and I do appreciate Councillor Maloney navigating the framework we'll operate under to make this heard tonight under short notice. I certainly do, and there's initiative in going out there and taking in information and providing a report to council. However, when it comes to international travel, it is a very sensitive topic for councils and how we undertake it. In the urgent business section is difficult because, as some councils have explained, it's very difficult to consider all factors. I have a concern that we are sending on an international trip. This is just on a pure technicality. We're asked to be endorsed on an educational trip, which we actually have not had analysis of. I actually don't know what's involved in this trip. We get general timeframes and overarching themes, but I don't actually know what it is, nor do I have a report explaining it to me or an officer advice on it either. So there are two sides of this coin. One that, there's an opportunity, and the other side is that there is a framework we have to operate under in terms of how we explore opportunities such as this. And that must always be done with the correct way, as I said, gathering this sensitive nature around international travel. But with that, I'll throw back to Councillor Harwood, who reserved his right before Councillor Maloney to close.
We've had councillors be unavailable or absent on a whole manner of issues that during the years. The fact that Councillor Maloney may be away, missing part of the budget process, I don't see is of relevance to what is sought to be achieved here. This is a study tour of a transport innovation study tour. So my understanding is that Councillor Maloney will actually be looking at the future. And if we look at our recent history of transport in and around Geelong, there's never been a better time to be innovative about actually transport in and around Geelong. We see population growth causing all sorts of issues, how we move around our city, and we are really struggling with how we do that properly and how we do it effectively and how we do it in a cost-effective manner. It's been highlighted on a number of occasions that our transport around the city is abysmal on occasions. We've had all sorts of issues with transport of truck movement and where they should or shouldn't be. We've had ongoing discussions, for want of a better word, about bike paths and how bikes can be integrated into our public transport system. And there's a lot to learn about how we could do that in a more innovative way. And I think Councillor Maloney's initiative to take this on board should be commended. It puts us in a very fortunate position to have a councillor attending such a forum in a part of the world where we know that particularly cycling as a method of transport and health and well-being is highly valued. And again, there's much to be learnt and gained from that. And the fact that Councillor Maloney has made a conscious choice to fund this particular innovation study tour, I think is also commendable. In my time on council, I've never encountered a councillor who's prepared to pay for the whole innovation study tour themselves. So for us to have a representative at such a forum with the potential to bring back greater knowledge of strategic innovation and also innovation to our policy, which is, again, I don't think it has stood the test of the community expectations. So I think this is a great opportunity and I fully support it. Thank you.
Dr. Harwood. Councillor Maloney, please. Just gone off.
Hopefully that works now. Thank you all for your comments. I have flagged a request with council support quite some time ago with respect to this tour, and I noticed that Councillor Aiken had dialed in from Indonesia to attend one of our meetings. I have missed one council meeting through my whole tenure, which was last month, because I wasn't able to access it due to my Surface Pro not being able to connect. And I've been very dedicated throughout my tenure as a councillor to attend as many meetings as possible, with the exception of illness for, I think, about 4. I unfortunately don't agree that I've been constantly reminding people of technological failures, but I'm sure that's just an ad lib comment. But I was given the opportunity to investigate further into a new area which I'm passionate about. In my research, I undertake in a professional capacity as a university professor, sustainability, which is a huge focus for me, and I hope that I can get the opportunity to not only engage with individuals who are expert in this area, but also demonstrate some solidarity to the individuals who are coming to council and talking about the actions that council have in respect to the environment, sustainability, climate change, emergencies, etc. So I hope that you can endorse my request. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. With that, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? The business is carried. Had to happen to me at one point. Record of informal meetings of councillors. Can we please have a mover for the record? Moved Deputy Mayor Aiken, seconded Councillor Nelson. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? It's carried. Planning delegations. Can we please have a mover for the planning delegations? Councillor Asher, seconded by Councillor Mason. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Carried. Now, coming up to section 7, which is confidential. The first item is community grants, 22-23 round 2. Can we please have a mover to put this into confidential? Moved Councillor Asher, seconded Councillor Mason. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Audit and Risk Committee Summary Report. To move this into confidential, can we please have a mover? Councillor Nelson, seconded Councillor Asher. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? That item is carried. All right, now to hear these items, we do have to close the meeting to a public. So can I please have a mover for that? Councillor Mason, seconded Councillor Asher again. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? The item is carried. I'd like to thank both our virtual and in-person gallery for their participation tonight. One of the greatest things about local government is that it is at the coalface, it is grassroots, and it is very approachable. So thank you everybody for your participation tonight, both in person and online. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your evening.